We have the first injury report of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. Week 1 game coming up this Thursday. I'll give that to you and much more coming today on KCS An Update presented by DraftKings.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome into today's KCS An Update presented by our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. Stick around to the end of the video if you want to learn more about them. I am Tucker Franklin. I'm very excited to get you up to date on everything going on with the Kansas City Chiefs. As I mentioned in the opening of the show, we have an injury report out. I'm going to go through the injury report with both teams for you guys. And I also sat down with Charles Goldman of A to Z Sports. He also does some stuff with us here at KCSN. He sat down with me to talk about kind of the big elephant in the room that Chris Jones doesn't really look like he's going to be playing in week 1. Even if he does report, probably not going to have a whole huge role. But we don't really talk about Chris Jones. We talk about who's going to step up in that absence. Some guys you can keep an eye on as the week progresses, as that game gets here on Thursday, I should say, rather, as we are getting ever so close to that first game of the NFL season. It's been a long 7 months, folks. Glad that we are back. But as I mentioned, first injury report of the season was released on Monday. Now, here's what we have. Let's go through that injury report. Then Monday's practice, they weren't there, so these are all estimate. They didn't practice on Monday. This is kind of like a Tuesday practice would be during a regular week. This Monday practice, Richie James, wide receiver, was a limited participant, along with L'Jarius Sneed, the cornerback, wide receiver, Kadarius Toney, and defensive end Tershawn Wharton. All of those guys were limited participants on Monday's practice. Richie James dealing with a knee injury. L'Jarius Sneed, obviously, that knee as well. Kadarius Toney and Tershawn Wharton all having knee injuries. All guys limited participants on today's practice report, or Monday's practice report, or injury report, I should say. Limited participants with knee injuries. Very interesting to see there. There's been a lot of talk about L'Jarius Sneed and how his role is going to be, if he's going to be on a snap count, a pitch count, whatever you want to call it. How much they're going to play him. It's going to be very interesting to see how they deal with L'Jarius Sneed, as he hasn't really practiced a whole lot. I believe he's starting to practice again, obviously, as he was a limited participant on Monday's practice, but starting to ramp back up to that full participant status that we want to see L'Jarius Sneed. The team doesn't seem very concerned about the severity of that injury, which is a good thing, and the team doesn't seem very nervous about the severity of Kadarius Toney's injuries. We've seen a lot of clips of him going around on social media about him doing some of these drills. It looks really good. I have seen some people comment on some limping a little bit. It looks like he's wearing a sleeve over that knee. Just trying to get back into things. Trying to get back into the swing of things. I'm sure he's got to get some strength back in that knee for not being up into football shape as well as all these other wide receivers and all these other guys are. But a win, nevertheless, that those guys are limited participants. Now, other guys that were listed on the injury report for the Kansas City Chiefs, Nick Allegretti with a pec injury was a full participant. Nick Jones, the cornerback, who actually broke his fingers in a preseason game, he was a full participant as well on Monday. And B.J. Thompson, a full participant as well, that defensive end there. So a few full participants with some injuries as well. Love to see those guys being full participants. Nick Allegretti is a guy who has a lot of depth to that offensive line, rather. I think it's going to be great to see. Nick Jones, I'm very impressed to see him as a full participant, even after breaking some of those fingers that he had in these preseason games. Didn't require surgery, which is a good thing for the Chiefs and for that cornerback depth room, as well as L'Jarius Sneed could be dealing with some potential knee issues moving forward, as he was a limited participant, as I mentioned. All right, now let's flip to the other side, as the Detroit Lions also released their injury report for Monday. They had only one limited participant, that was Emmanuel Mosley, the defensive back, with a knee injury. And Isaiah Buggs, defensive tackle, he was sick, but a full participant. Fitu Melifonwu, the safety, I believe out of Illinois, I can remember doing a lot of prospect breakdowns on him, had a hamstring injury, a full participant as well. And Frank Ragnow, their center, had a toe injury, but was a full participant. Now, the Lions are not as banged up as the Chiefs. We'll see as the week goes on, but I want to see a little bit more positive news for the Chiefs on the injury front. I want to see some of those full participant guys go on Tuesday. Would love to see that as the injury report comes out. But as these injury reports come out, that means we are so much closer to the action of the Kansas City Chiefs taking the football field and getting to see some real live football. They'll have practices on Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll have the game time designations, and make sure to stay subscribed to us here at KC Sports Network, as we'll have you covered. We've got all kinds of content ready for you guys coming up on the first game of the season. All right, as I mentioned earlier, I sat down with Charles Goldman of A to Z Sports, the conference editor over there. He covers the whole AFC, but mainly a specialist on the Kansas City Chiefs. We sat down to talk about some of these guys that could step up in the absence of Chris Jones, as it looks like that he will be out for week 1. Has not reported at the time of recording this video, has not reported yet. Even if he does report anytime soon, don't think he's going to be on the field all that much. So they're going to need some guys to step up in that role. Here's a little bit of our conversation that we had. Charles, to kick off this conversation, who are you looking at and kind of circling on that defensive line group to say, okay, they need to kind of step up because they don't have Chris Jones. They don't have Charles Goldman for the first 6 weeks. It's going to be a really interesting period, I think, in these first 6 weeks of the season to see how the defensive line kind of grows and kind of how they get home.
Yeah, I think, just purely from a pass rushing perspective, there's really only 2 people that I think you can look at and say, hey, like, we need you guys to step up and help pick up the slack here. And that's going to be George Karlaftis and Felix Anudike-Uzomah.
Yeah.
I think that those 2 players, obviously both first-round draft picks, late first-rounders, but still first-round draft picks. And there's a level of expectation that comes with being a first-round draft pick. I think George finished, last season really strong. And can really build on that and start off hot. And I think that Felix, he's going to be more of a rotational piece early on, kind of like George was to start off his rookie season, right? Well, I think he flashed enough during the preseason that the coaches will have confidence to put him in there and let him pin his ears back and get after the quarterback. And I think, those 2 guys are going to be who you're looking at mainly to kind of pick up the pace from that pass rushing perspective. Obviously, Mike Dana is another guy. He's been there a long time. He's in a contract year. We know what our friend Therese Paylor like to say. The contract year is undefeated. Okay, like he's going to be working for that contract. So, making a big impact in key situations. I'm looking for Dana to potentially be that guy. And then, from the other half of it, right? Because Chris Jones isn't just a pass rusher as much as he contributes in that area, but he's also, a guy who commands double teams, who's going to really help out in the run game. So, I'm thinking about the different ways that Steve Spagnuolo and Joe Cullen can really adjust to, ensure that the run game is also a focus too, right? Andy Reid said, I think it was last week, he said something along the lines of that we're going to have to play to the strengths of the guys that we have, right? Mm-hmm. So they've got some of these bigger bodies on the defensive line, some of these big run-stopping D tackles. So, I'm thinking you get, some of those big bodies on the D-line early, right? So, maybe we're not seeing so many four-man fronts. Maybe we're seeing some 3-man fronts with some of these bigger bodies, a couple of linebackers up near the line of scrimmage, and stopping that run, focusing on that, stopping the run early, so that, you can really pin your ears back, send blitzes. We know Spags is creative with that. And he's got a lot of guys now who can do it, right? Drew Tranquil, really good at the linebacker spot. Chamari Connor was blitzing like crazy from the nickel and coming up as a safety in the box as well during the preseason. So I think we're going to see like a lot of that to kind of mix it up and ensure that, the Chiefs are going to, they're going to be okay without Chris. They're going to find a way. They don't really have much of a choice, right? But I think that they're going to do a lot of different things to kind of, really make sure that they're helping out the secondary one, right? Because, they're going to, like you said, they're going to have to cover for maybe, a tick longer than they might do if Chris were on the field. So, different coverages that they can call there. But also the different things they can do with that defensive line. Run blitzes, pass blitzes, stunts, what have you.
When I started thinking about, what the Chiefs defense can do without Chris Jones, I do start to think about Spagnuolo's probably going to be in his bag when it comes to the play calling. And we usually don't see the Spagnuolo defense get too out there in terms of like blitzes and different things that they do this early on in the season. But the secondary has had a year in the system, right? These young guys have had a year longer in the system. I think that kind of lends to more opportunities for Spagnuolo to trust those guys in the back end, know what's going on when they're doing a bunch of crazy stuff up front, because it can kind of get confusing a little bit. But having those guys have that year of experience now in this system, I think will allow Spag to dial it up a little bit more. You mentioned the personnel, and I think that's a really good point. When you look at all the defensive tackles that are on their roster right now, they're all pretty big guys. When you talk about Derek Nottie, Tershawn Wharton, Neil Farrell, and Keandre Coburn, like all of those guys, like I'm sure, yeah, they can play 3-tech, but like traditionally 1-tech run-stopping guys. When you look at just kind of their roles, I mean, take Tershawn Wharton out of it, because I think Tershawn Wharton is like a situational pass rushing guy that can come from that 3-tech, and he can stop the run too. Like we've seen Tershawn Wharton do that as well. He's very stout in the middle. It might be almost and I'm glad that you brought this up, Charles, a little bit of a philosophy change in terms of like without Chris Jones, how they're going to defensively approach a game like against the Lions, who do run the ball, who had some success last year running the ball. They've got different running backs this year now too. They got offensive line. I don't think is totally the same, if I can remember off the top of my head. But I think that there's some really interesting aspects of that defensive line, philosophy-wise, that we could see change a little bit, especially with the addition of Drew Tranquil, adding him in there and adding another dynamic linebacker with Willie Gay, with Nick Bolton, and really like Leo Chanel as well. So I think maybe that they can kind of tweak things a little bit. We see them running a lot of 3-down lineman sets. Maybe they can tweak things a little bit to kind of work in their favor. If you want to hear more of Charles and I's conversation, go check it out wherever you listen to your audio podcast. That was yesterday's KCSN update. You can find that, again, wherever you listen to audio podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, any of them, you can find them, iHeartRadio. If it's not there, we'll do our best to try to get it there for you as well. So we want to make sure that you have all the content that you need to have leading up to the Chiefs' Week 1 game against the Detroit Lions. Coming up on Thursday, opening the season, banner dropping. Going to be all eyes on Kansas City. It's going to be a very exciting time to be a Kansas City Chiefs fan. It's the best time to be a Kansas City Chiefs fan too. So if you want more content from us here at KC Sports Network, the KC Laboratory last night went live on our YouTube channel. You can check out that live replay, or you could go listen to the podcast as that is out now on our audio channels as well. They talked about some of the injury reports a little bit more in-depth schematically than what I did here. I just given you, hey, these are the guys who are injured. They break it down, talking about from the schematic standpoint of how those guys' injuries and them returning can affect the Chiefs and the matchups that they face against the Detroit Lions. If you're watching this video on Tuesday, good news, because Only Weird Games, the guys formerly known as Time Czars, will be live on our channel at 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. That Arrowhead time at 4:30, those guys will be live on our channel, but you can catch that podcast after the fact wherever you listen to your podcast as well. So make sure you are locked into us here. Make sure to like the video and hit the subscribe so you can become a first teamer at KC Sports Network. Really appreciate you guys sticking all the way until the very end of the video. But I got to tell you about our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook before we go. Can you believe we've had 7 months without an NFL game? It seems crazy, but it's a good thing that that's over now, as the NFL is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't-miss offer for Week 1. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on the NFL game. DraftKings is also hooking everyone up with game day greatness. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Check the app to see what you get. Download now and use the code KCSN to sign up. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code KCSN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. That's going to do it for today's episode of KCS and Update. Appreciate you guys sticking all the way to the end of the video. We'll be back soon with more content, but make sure you subscribe as we'll have live shows. We'll have a live post-game show. Everything that you need to know to get you ready and what you need to know after the Chiefs' first game against the Detroit Lions. So I'm Tucker Franklin. I will talk to you guys very soon.